Hello, everyone. My name is Alexis Wallstrom, and today you are attending my Linguistics webinar. We are going to be discussing phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. So let's go ahead and get started. Phonology is the ability for students to distinguish the differences in speech sounds and how phonemes are combined and used to create sounds. This can be in any language, and it includes identifying words that rhyme, counting the number of syllables, recognizing alliterations, segmenting words, and identifying syllables in a word. So, for example, you could ask a student the two words cat and car and ask if these words sound the same, if they're hearing that same k sound. If you're looking at rhyming, you could say the words boy and toy and ask, do these two words rhyme? When we look at syllables, you could look at things like the word wagon, and this could be how many syllables are in wagon. So let's clap it out. Wagon. And there are two. Some other examples, going into rhyming again, would be including words like cat and bat, and asking the student if they could understand or add in any other words that rhyme, or just asking the student if they do rhyme. You could also do segmentation. If I gave the student the word run, they could give me the letter sounds r, n, run. For syllables, if I gave the students the word watermelon and asked how many syllables were in the word, they would go watermelon. 4 syllables. Phonology is incredibly important for students to understand. It is how they are able to complete and understand questions. Phonology is essential for reading. It's the way that words are written and how they correspond in a spoken form. If a student is able to read, they need to have awareness of the different sounds that each letter is making, and need to be able to take those sounds and combine them to make them represent different sounds for letter combinations or individual letters, depending on how they are used. So, understanding phonology really brings out awareness of sounds and the understanding of spoken and written words. There are so many instructional strategies that can go into aspects of phonology. For example, here I have a set of rhyming words, and the students would then take these words and they would place the cards together so that they could show that they understood that these words were rhyming. So, for example, our first two words we have are fair and chair. Do those words rhyme? They do. The next section that I have at the very top is another example of how you could apply rhyming in your classroom. So it's a rhyming word match. On the left side of the page, you can see there are several different examples of words. So on our top section, it says map. The next sections have pig, bug, and cap. You would ask the students to color in which or circle whichever word rhymed with map. So in this case, it would be cap. Below this, we have segmenting words. These are segmenting cards that we use a lot in kindergarten and first grade classrooms when they are learning how to really sound stretch and build words together. So the dot under each one of the letters indicates a different sound that they are going to be working on. So for the word said, they would have the s, eh, d, 3 sounds. The last picture that I have in this corner down here is for the word cap. These are little puzzle pieces where the students would work on building the picture and forming the word together, and then they would be able to take those sounds and those letters and turn them into the word. So we're going to go ahead and move on to morphology. So morphology is the study of word parts and how they relate to one another. Morphomes are considered the smallest part of the word. Morphomes are used to represent sounds, and these sounds mean different things. So for my example here, I have the word contradiction. When you break this down into prefixes, the root word, and the suffixes, you have contra, which means against, dict, which means to speak, and yun, which means a verbal action. So contradiction means to speak against a verbal action. You look over here for morphology, you see that the words are made up of morphomes. This includes your prefix, which is the beginning sound that you might hear, your base or your root word, and your suffix. And each portion of these words is going to carry meaning on what the entire word will mean. When students are becoming more fluent in reading and moving up in levels and understanding more in their books, and they're starting to advance, they need to have a clear understanding of morphology. When students can understand morphones well, then they can go along with any word that they see and build a stronger foundation of putting together these words so that they are able to understand what they are reading, learn new vocabulary, and really gain and work on their comprehension because they understand what the words are. So for the instructional strategy here, I have several different prefixes, root words, and suffixes. And you can do this on individual pieces of paper, or you could do this on like rings and cards that they can flip through and make their own words. So the students would take different portions of words and they would put a prefix and a suffix on the end in the beginning of their root word. And then they would be able to take those words and they would be able to create new words. So as you can see here, they have multiple examples. And even in these examples, you can see there's more than one tract or more than one struct. So they're using these same root words and they're switching out their prefixes and suffixes. So they're really starting to understand not only what those few base words mean, but also what those prefixes and suffixes can mean and do to change that root or base word. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to syntax. Syntax is the arrangement of words and phrases to create a well-formed sentence. So this can also mean that if you change a word in a sentence, you could be changing the meaning of your entire sentence. Languages have specific rules about which order different parts of the sentence should be made up of. Syntax can include word order, grammar rules, and it also includes things like subject, verb agreement, and the correct placement of direct and indirect objects. When you look at syntax, it consists of several rules. These include that a sentence has to require a subject and a verb. You should also see that a single sentence should only have one main idea or one focus point of the sentence. If there is more than one main idea, then the sentence should be broken into two sentences. The subject should also come before the verb, and the sentence needs to have some kind of object, and these should come third after your subject and your verb. And then after a dependent clause, you should require a subject and a verb. And then if you have adjectives and adverbs, they're going to go in front of the words that you're describing in your sentence. So here I have a couple of examples of how syntax is so important. So my example says, choose the sentence below that follows the syntax rules. A, the sky looking nice tonight. B, the sky tonight, nice will look. C, tonight, the nice sky. D, the sky looks nice tonight. So if you see here, our first area here, the sky, that's your subject. Looks is your verb. Nice is your adjective. And then you have your word tonight describing when you are seeing the sky. When a student is able to understand syntax, they're able to understand continuity. Continuity is when multiple works act as a single unit, such as a sentence in the English language. If you change the placement of a word, it'll often change the meaning of a sentence. And sometimes this can be a minor change, but also there is the chance it could make a significant difference. This could mean that the whole interpretation of a sentence is changed because the syntax was not appropriate. Syntax is incredibly important when students are learning the appropriate ways for sentences to be written. They start to understand and format how the English language or whatever language they are learning that they are working in and how these impositions can affect and change how they're formatting their sentences. So here I have several instructional strategies you can use, such as the first one being a sentence triangle and my second one being cue cards to help create sentences. Both of these help with differentiation in the classroom, as the sentence triangle can be a little trickier, whereas the cue cards help build the foundations of syntax. With your sentence triangle, you'll start out with your simplest form of a sentence. So we go to the beach in the summer. You are then going to add on to your sentence. So you're going to make it a more complex sentence, then you'll make a compound sentence, and then you'll make a compound complex sentence being the bottom. So at the end, we have, we go to the beach in the summer, but my cat stays home because he doesn't own a swimsuit. For the next section, you have your who or your subject cards, your action or your verb cards, you have your where cards and your when cards to try and make a complete sentence. Then for each of the bottom cards here, there will be multiple options that you can use to create your own sentences. So the sentence we ended up here was, my brother drove a tractor at the table this morning. So what is semantics? Semantics is a portion of linguistics which is concerned around the meaning of language. This can be applied to the entire reading passage or to a single word. This is also how words may be interpreted. When it comes to semantics and their meaning, there are several ways to look at them. So you could use directional words, descriptors, and you could use numbers or any kind of way that you could describe something to really add detail and make it so the understanding of the word is clear. So, for example, if I was giving you an example of semantics and I was looking at a thing of directions, you could have words like first, take the first left on the right. You could also use words like next, we need to go to the left at the stop sign. This is helping cue the reader into what the actual meaning or needs of those particular words and then into the whole sentences may mean. Semantics is incredibly important because it's a large part of how students understand and comprehend what they read, as well as how they express themselves in their writing. When students understand semantics, they are able to look at a text and create inferences on what a person was writing about. The stronger the students are at semantics, the stronger their reading comprehension will be, and this will help them advance and understand more difficult areas of text. For the instructional strategies here, I have using visual cues in my top picture and really working on the foundations and vocabulary of understanding what different words mean so you can relate them to text. So for understanding visual cues and pictures, if you look at this top picture, you notice that there is one sad blue fish. So if you were reading this story and they said that the fish was upset, you could understand or relate that the word upset meant that the fish was unhappy, he was sad, he was not okay at this time, and you can tell this by looking at the visual. When we look down at the bottom section, I have opposite words because a lot of the times knowing opposites can help support students in their understanding of vocabulary, which will help strengthen their semantics abilities. Pragmatics is an area of language where what the speaker means and what the listener infers are based on factors such as situational context, the individual's mental state, previous dialogues. This can also include the speaker's or the listener's body language, if there is a use of humor, sarcasm, empathy, or any other emotion or reaction. You can't control what other people hear, and you can't control how what you say comes to someone else. But using body language, social cues, and being able to answer and interpret things that people say can help make a more successful conversation. Here I have an example. If a parent were to ask a child, "Did you finish your homework?" and the child says, "I finished my math homework," the parent may feel like the child might have other homework because they specifically said they finished their math homework and they have a lot of other subjects in school. Whereas the child, on the other hand's response may have been, they asked if I finished my homework and I had math homework. So they said, I finished my math homework. Learning and understanding pragmatics is incredibly important because it helps the students to avoid miscommunications or conflicts in conversation. It also helps support the growth of communication with others and the understanding and relationship to physical factors and personal and environmental factors that can affect conversations. Great instructional strategies to support the needs of students in the Classroom would be role playing to work on those conversational cues. This can be through cards or through just prompted conversations. Another way to support students is using groups and partners to make sure that students are getting the interaction and social needs that to support their learning. Overall, children understanding linguistics is incredibly important in their developmental and fundamental growth as readers, writers, and speakers. I tried to create instructional strategies that not only supported the needs of different students, but could be adjusted as needed depending on the different levels of your students. I want to thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.